Welcome to the Laugh Track Podcast. I'm Wesley.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Dean.
And we're going to talk about Hamilton, the musical, the film, released on Disney Plus on July 4th.
Hamilton, the musical, the film, the Disney Plus, the
series,
the show, the
Disney
series. Yeah.
I would watch it.
So Wesley actually has the most tragic history with Hamilton. He's been a fan the longest. But his history is the saddest.
I listened to the first song for years, and then I never listened beyond the first song until like 2017. And then I was like, let me listen to the rest of the soundtrack. And I was like, oh shit, y'all, this is good.
You did that? Why would you do that?
Because I was on Spotify and my Discover Weekly showed me just the first song. And I listened to it and I was like, this is cool. And I just put it into like a random playlist I had, and then I just never went beyond it. And then I showed Gabby once and she was like, let's listen to the rest. And at that point we had started to hear that Hamilton was like the next big thing. Or it was already like the big thing by
And then you guys got super into it and then cut to 2019.
Yeah. So in 2019, God, was it 2019? No, it was like, yeah. So I bought tickets to Hamilton in Jacksonville, which was real stressful. One, because we were a month and a half away from a New York trip, and we were like, what if we just went and saw it on Broadway? But tickets were really expensive, extremely hard to get. So I was like, let's just get the Jacksonville tickets. Those were still pretty expensive, but I got really good seats. And then we went to New York. So we saw Wicked on Broadway instead, came back, and we're like, man, musicals are awesome. I can't wait for Hamilton this September. It's going to be so sick. And then the coronavirus hit and ruined everything. And I got an email that said the play had been delayed and I could get a refund, or I could just hold on to my tickets for when it returns. And I was like, I'll do that. And then I got an email that said it was coming like later, like at a different time. And I was like, that's fine. I'll just wait. I'm sure it'll be like December or something. And then I get another email that said it's coming September 8th, 2021. So I have over a year and a half to wait until I see this play finally.
So how surprised were you guys when they announced that it was coming to Disney Plus? Because I had no idea. Also, before you answer that, side note to the viewers, if you see us looking down off into the corner of the screen, it's because we've got each other on our phones so we can see each other. And we're talking at each other and not like, I don't know, on Twitter. So
yeah,
Disney Plus, did you guys know that was on the way, or did it surprise you?
No, I was shocked. As a matter of fact, if Wester would remember, whenever he started listening to the musical, I didn't want to listen to it because as a fan of musicals, I wanted to, instead of listening to it on Spotify for the first time, wait for it to be released as either a film or a like they did, like the filmed version of the musical. Little did I know that it would be obviously years, so I broke clearly. But I was shocked because didn't they announce right beforehand that they were bringing it to theaters?
Yeah, they were going to Disney bought the rights to this recording.
That's right.
In 2018 or 2019 maybe. And they were going to bring it to theaters October 2021.
Yes, that's what I'm remembering.
Yeah, so the assumption was like, great, they're going to put it together. They're probably working on it right now to have it ready to go for theaters next year. And then it was like in the middle of the coronavirus stuff when things started to like really suck. Lin-Manuel tweeted out like, hey, we're bringing this to Disney Plus, which I mean, obviously we know Disney Plus probably just wanted to make another hit. I mean, they got like 70% increase in downloads that weekend.
Did Disney Plus?
What do you think was the decision making behind that?
Did Disney have any wide release, like theatrical release movies that got pushed back or canceled because of, well, I guess like Black Widow.
Mulan.
Okay, yeah. So I wonder if this was like, you know, an effort to come back. In fact, from
all of
that
Disney's
loss.
movies have gotten delayed. Even the ones that were supposed to release next year, I believe.
Whoa, really?
I thought so. Like
so
Shang-Chi and all those
back?
Yeah,
everything got pushed back one slot, I think. Like if you're, at least in the MCU timeline, I think everything got pushed back to the next slot, if I recall.
Oh, I forgot to
Black Widow
to tell you guys.
What'd you get? What is this?
I got
this
topical.
Jefferson.
No,
1704, yeah.
1792. I got this bottle of 1792. I thought it would be. It's 1792 small batch. I thought it'd be topical to enjoy 1792. So,
have you ever had it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've always looked at it and been like, that looks cool.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Um,
It's like $30 for a bottle.
oh, we love that.
So,
But yeah, so basically, I mean, obviously it was probably like to get more downloads for Disney Plus, which is why Hamilton came early. But I think, I mean, it really was kind of like a nice thing to do, which I know sucks to say, like, oh, mega corporation like Disney is like doing something nice, but it's
that
like,
had nothing to do with their decision-making process.
no, it definitely did. Like it was July 4th. Like, why would they bring it at a year and a half early?
That's a good question. I mean,
I mean, I think it was mostly money, but I do think there was an announce where Lin-Manuel and Disney talked, and they're like, "Man, what if we just did something really cool for your
so
streaming service?"
Why would it not have been a theatrical release later this year, coronavirus aside, if it was fully edited and ready to go by July? Why would it have been a
Beats me.
14,
I got
15
no
months
idea.
later?
It might have been something they weren't scheduled to work on.
Who
and
knows?
then-
I think it's release schedule and circumstances, and I think it was I think more so than anything, it was a pivot. You know,
Yeah.
because
I mean,
of
they
the
did that with Artemis
times.
Fowl too. Which
I haven't watched that show or that movie looks atrocious.
I've heard it's like the worst movie ever made, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass.
Which movie did you say? Artemis Fowl?
Artemis Fowl.
Oh no. Yeah. So what'd you guys think?
So I loved it, obviously. Me and my wife are very big fans. She's obsessed with Lin-Manuel Miranda as a person, as a character in this play. She loves him. So the second it started, she started crying, and then when I see her cry, I start crying. And so the first we rewatched the first song basically, or at least we went back a lot because it was like mostly blurry for both of us. And it was for her. I mean, obviously, she just loves musicals, so this was like a big deal for her because we'd been wanting to see this for years. And then, yeah, whenever she started crying, the emotion took over me, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" And then
What hit
the
you guys
rest
the
of the play
most?
happened, and it was just like shit.
What hit you
It was
guys
literally the first. It was
emotionally?
the first exact note.
Just finally getting that satisfaction. I was satisfied
Get it?
when I could finally just see there's so much more of a story to tell when you have the visuals and the acting to go along with the soundtrack that I've heard so many times.
Yeah, I agree because I had to recently do a cross-country road trip from California to Florida, and one of the things that we decided to do was to listen to Hamilton because we had heard so much about it, and we listened to most of it. And for me, I don't know if it's because of the music or the way it's written, or if it's just myself. It was hard for me to follow. Maybe I'm just a visual person and I need that to like connect. But
Mhm.
when I was
Took me
watching
several-
it was such a good story, and it was really well written and fun to watch, and a different experience. And listening to the soundtrack after you've seen the film once or twice, I feel like is a better experience than just watching or listening to the soundtrack for the first time, audio only.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
The first several times I would say I listened to the soundtrack, I really didn't have a huge understanding of the plot, and that I had to garner that understanding later on. And I'll say that something else, whenever I was listening to the soundtrack on a long road trip, like you said, towards the end I would kind of get exhausted of it. Just I don't know why, but that was every time I would listen to it all the way through. And that's something I didn't deal with watching it, having that visual association. It was really nice. And yeah, like you said, the plot was a lot more understandable.
Mhm.
As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, next time I'm going to watch it with subtitles because there's still some stuff that I miss for sure.
I pick up on something new, like with the lyrics every time I watch.
It's just clever as hell.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a show where like you can't watch it the first time and understand it.
That's the thing. Immediately,
because it's
we went through when I watched it the first time, probably halfway through the first number, I turned the subtitles on. I was like, I
Yeah.
can tell where this is going to go.
yeah.
For me, so I turned the subtitles. I've only ever watched it with the subtitles.
Yeah.
See,
I mean,
I'm going to wait for my second viewing for the subtitles. I didn't
Yeah.
want it to distract me this time.
mhm. It's a lot. I mean, it's a fictionalized story of this historical happening, and there's a lot of characters. There's a lot of names. The same voices are doing different characters. Yeah. So to pick it all up in one play or one listen is like pretty impossible. I feel like. And I've been listening to it for years, so at this point, like I know every song all the way through and stuff. But so watching it and putting that together, and then realizing how much more story is being told visually, like through the choreography, and
Industry term.
yeah, choreography, and like just the things the characters are doing while they're singing to each other and stuff. It tells so much more of a full story, like to see it all play out in front of you on screen like that.
I never knew how many actors were reused.
Mm-hmm.
And it really speaks to their level of talent that they can play such different sounding, appearing, acting characters within the same show. I think that's the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Speaking of the choreography, in one song, I forget which it is. I think it's during one of the duels. I'm not going to try. The lyric is like the world is turned upside down, and they take all the furniture on set and they walk around with it above their heads, like upside down. All the chairs are upside down.
I didn't even notice that.
I think is it like it's like in slow mo kind of?
Kind of, yeah.
I think it's Hurricane. That's me. That's like my favorite shot.
Yeah.
It's because he's talking about everything spinning around him and everybody's holding stuff and they're like,
exactly.
It look like it's flying through the air.
Which is
so
it's
sick.
Genius, and it makes like I do film, and it makes me think about accomplishing story, because I think people use this might be a tangent, but that's what we're here for. I think people use CGI and stuff like that as a crutch sometimes, when they can just be a little bit more creative and accomplish it the same way or a different way, but still accomplish it. And these guys literally have one stage and some chairs and some boxes, and they can tell, they make slow motion happen when someone fires a musket. The lady like travels the bullet, and that the turntable that has
thing.
It's incredible. It's an incredible replacement for a camera that you would normally pan around a scene.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. Camera's stationary, so you're going to pan the audience or the crew instead.
The point of the turntable in Satisfied, when it shows Angelica's version of the conversation at dinner with Hamilton, I believe they switch sides. Like when they initially meet, they're on the right side, and then when it's her side, it's on the left side to show it's a completely different perspective. So like even
the turntable goes the opposite direction during that song too. I don't remember which way is which, but during Helpless it's going one way, and during Satisfied it's going the reverse.
Rewind effect in general was like freaking mind blowing for me. Something so simple, I can't imagine how hard that is to pull off, dude.
Probably so much work.
Oh my god. And how good they were at like freeze framing the surrounding actors when the focus was on whether it was an aside or a private conversation.
How much have you guys looked at like behind the scenes wise of this? Because I feel like I've watched everything on YouTube that there is to watch.
I watched a little bit that Adam Savage produced.
So what was cool to me to find out, because the whole time I was watching, I was also thinking about just the way the cameras were, and I was like, this must have been like a cheap seat show where you're just gonna have to accept there's tons of cameras on stage. And so they filmed it twice actually, which I didn't know. I was watching a behind the scenes of the director, and they filmed all the wide angle shots are with an audience, and that's how you hear the claps and stuff. And then they did for close up shots and stuff like on stage, they did they performed it without anybody in the audience.
Yeah, so
which I thought was cool.
It's 3 different performances that they cut together, and I saw that video. I don't know if we watched the same one, but you can tell at one point, I think probably in Satisfied as well, one of Angelica's songs, one of the nights, she doesn't have a flower on her corset or her dress.
Which I never would have noticed, which I mean...
Right, but the second time I watched it after I found that out, I was looking for it, which it didn't ruin anything for me, but it's just... I prefer to know those things.
I wonder if that actually affects some of the small issues that I wanted to talk about later with some of the performances. Did it live up to your guys' expectations overall?
Oh yeah, it like surpassed it. Like the songs I didn't like in the show now are like some of my favorites now because of what I'm seeing on stage. What did I miss was like my least favorite song in the show.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And watching it, I was like, what the heck? Why do I like this so much now?
Absolute same reaction for me.
Because I hate listening to it. I love how it starts, and I love the like slower part, but when it goes into like the what did I miss? I was like, okay, this sucks.
Same.
And then I watched it, and I was like, oh my god, this is awesome.
As a matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson as a character in general was kind of excruciating to listen to when you're doing audio only. For me, But then it completely flipped, having that
Mhm.
visual association and having the actor sell it so well, even better than I pictured.
Excruciating in what
He
way?
was awesome. What's that?
Excruciating in terms of what?
Excruciating is a strong word, but I guess having Thomas Jefferson's obviously intentionally obnoxious voice and vocals, I think was a bit much for me when listening.
I
in
don't
the
think
car.
he is
But
being intentionally annoying. I just think Daveed Diggs isn't a singer. I think he's an actor, and he got the part and did his thing, which I think is super cool because I would say that about Lin-Manuel Miranda also, he's not the best Broadway. Like, you wouldn't think of Broadway vocalist when you think of his voice.
No, not at all.
But these people are just throwing themselves into the character so much that even if they're not singing as well as George Washington or Eliza, like it totally works for me.
do you want me to open Pandora's box on that? Because that's one of my biggest things I have to contribute to this show.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So
open the box.
with Jefferson, I do think that to an extent his vocals are intentionally like over the top. And I think he's a really talented singer. But with Lin-Manuel, I couldn't stop getting the impression that he was having an off day or he was tired. And
Really?
So here's the thing. All right, I'm going. I'm going, and if you need to stop me,
Okay.
then stop me,
All right,
because this is
buckle
one of
up.
my biggest things I got to do. All right, so the million times that I've listened to the Spotify recording, I have this. I don't know if the issue is that I have this picture in my head of how they need to deliver this lines. I obviously have the audio of how they deliver them. So a lot of my issue was in several of Hamilton's songs, in several of his parts that were some of my favorite deliveries. I'll back up. One of my favorite deliveries is like "We have resorted to eating our horses." His delivery of that. His delivery of "They take your name and rake it through the mud." Incredible. In the audio recording. However, specifically compared to the actual show, it's almost like dialed in, like he's not selling it nearly as much. And then having that next to a performance like Washington's, which was freaking incredible to begin with, and then twice as good with his acting and the visual association. I don't necessarily agree. I don't know how much of a controversial take this is, but I don't necessarily agree with the people saying that Lin-Manuel doesn't have a good voice. I think his voice is actually a really interesting fit for the character. While I don't necessarily agree with his own casting, I don't think he should have been cast as Hamilton.
Really?
I don't.
Well, he wrote the play.
I think he should have been the director.
Oh.
And I think as the director, he should have had the responsibility of understanding that he wasn't necessarily the best casting choice. And that might be controversial, but
I don't think it's
there were so
controversial.
many-
I just think you're alone in it.
I don't know if I am.
I've never heard anybody say that
Really?
it shouldn't be him. No, I've never. I mean, I don't
never
think.
had that opinion until I watched this yesterday. And it's like, I don't know if it's because all the other actors are so good, but he's emotionless half the time.
Really?
Whoa,
Man, that's
really?
crazy. I actually
Emotionless.
thought
A lot of his passion is gone from the audio recording.
that's interesting. There's only one change in the show that like I'm bummed about, and that's just the way that he says "hey" to Miss Reynolds during "Say No to This." Like in the audio recording, he goes "hey," and in the show he just says, I don't even remember how he does it,
Or
but
he
that's the
says-
only thing that I noticed like being so different. Where I was like, I wish he did it. The
I
audio
noticed
way.
in the opening number, the first time I watched it, they're telling the story of Hamilton like being born in the Caribbean and all this stuff, and then I almost called him Bill Burr. Wow, Aaron Burr gets on the steps and he says when they're saying that they're sailing to America, he says the ship is in the harbor now. But he says it like, the ship is in the harbor now.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Like Eminem.
Ship is in the hub.
The ship is in the
I know
harbor
exactly
now.
what you're talking about.
But he doesn't. I bring that up because he
I
didn't say that on the Spotify tape, but in the live performance he does, and that's like the funniest part of that number to me. And they got rid of it, which
I'm
makes me
okay
wonder
with
when
being
that
wrong.
recording is from, or if it's from a live performance.
The audio
at all.
recording is from 2015.
from a live
So
performance, or
they-
is it studio?
It's a studio performance.
Yeah,
And it's from 2015. If at least on Spotify it says it's a 2015 album, so it's theoretically at least 6 months older than what we watched, because what we watched was June 2016. So assuming like I think the play went in like February or March 2015 off Broadway, so they recorded it within like probably 10 months, and then 6 months later they did this version that we watched.
So I specifically took issue in Cabinet Battle number 1, and I enjoyed him in Dear Theodosia. It was like, that's why I got the impression almost that it was different takes, because sometimes he sold it well, and then other times it's like he was bored or tired on stage. I'm okay with being wrong, but no, listen to me.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, go for
when
it.
he, like, even like in the audio recording, the "we have resorted to eating our horses," it sounds like desperate almost. And in this one, he literally was just like, "We've resorted to eating our horses," or when they're raking through the mud scene in which one is that? When they shoot General Lee.
10 Duel Commandments.
Yeah, in 10 Duel Commandments, and he says it in the audio recording, and there's so much anger because he's a loud, obnoxious, arrogant, loudmouth, abrasive, passionate. You know, they can describe that so many times, but Lin-Manuel's acting, in my opinion, doesn't reflect that personality at all throughout this musical. In the audio recording, I could picture it, I could hear it, but he says, they take your name and they rake it through the mud.
I can see the differences.
The audio recording where he's like trying to hold back his anger.
I don't remember the audio recording specifically, but I do know that scene's different. But my take on that scene was like, compared to the audio, the visual section, or this performance of 10 Duel Commandments, Hamilton was way more like of an arrogant person in the scene. Like whenever him and Burr are trying to like solve it, they're the seconds. Burr's like, you know that dueling is stupid, like it's ignorant, and Hamilton's like, sure, yeah, man, but why don't you just get your guy to say sorry, and then we'll move on past this. Whereas in the audio recording, it's more of like a, just have your dude say sorry, and we can move on past this kind of thing. That's my read on it. But I mean,
I think it's just a case of like, I think it's an age-old issue that people have with music, and like
just the live performance being different.
I mean, if you heard a cover of a Beatles song if you heard that song, All You Need Is Love, covered by somebody else for the first time you ever heard that song, and then you listen to the Beatles, you might not like the Beatles version because it's not what you are familiar with. And so like we have been listening to the soundtrack first, so you guys have gotten it ingrained in your brain a certain way. And then when it doesn't go that way, I think it's just a matter of expectations maybe.
I did consider that, and I agree for the most part, but I realized that there were other actors who did slightly different things vocally, but their acting was great, and it still sounded good, so I was okay with it. I think my issue genuinely was more with the acting and not the vocal performance. I do think that his acting, and I understand, I'm not ignorant enough to think that like a studio recording versus a live performance, of course it's going to sound different. But my main issue was that Lin-Manuel didn't seem into it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think also that
sometimes
the problem with how we were able to digest this entertainment is that this kind of like theater performances is not meant to be observed multiple times because it's going to be a different, like there's no way it's going to be the same every single time, especially when
we're not
you
supposed to see close-ups and stuff either.
Totally. So yeah, exactly. You wouldn't see the microphones, but when you add a human element, control kind of goes away, especially humans that pride themselves in interpreting. You know what I mean? And I even watched a behind-the-scenes thing with the guy that plays the king, like not the original
Jonathan
king.
Groff?
No, not the original one, but a newer one. And they asked him like, how much did you take from the original Jonathan Groff performance? And he's like, as actors, we want to see nothing. We want to interpret it the way that we hear it, the way that we see it, the way that we're directed, but we don't want to be replicating a different performance because then their job is, they're just robots at that point. They're not being used because they're talented actors and have something to offer, but just because they are accepting a paycheck and the director can say, oh no, say it like this.
Again, yeah, like, okay, so I was a theater kid, right? And so I understand that. Again, it really just, it isn't even that deep for me. I know that Lin-Manuel is capable of a good performance based on his audio recordings. And it's like, maybe it was my own expectations and then of course the comparison. So my expectations as well, even he was just so stiff compared to the other characters in general. And I don't know if that's a director's choice, but like he wasn't even like moving with the beat like some other characters would. You know what I mean? Like something about it was just so stiff and tired to me.
That's so interesting. I like have a totally different reading.
Watch it again with
like the parts where he's
for it.
like there's so much that he does while he's singing.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying throughout the entire musical. I'm not. And he's obviously still, I think, a great performer. I just think that there was several parts that I was looking forward to where he failed to deliver. And I haven't read any discussions or anything. I don't know if that is unpopular. And I do think there's some times where he does really well, like in Dear Theodosia. I think he does really well in he sold it well in Cabinet Battle number 2, I thought. It's just there were so many parts where he really just dialed it in and didn't do as well for me. And I still loved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that every other performance was elevated by the acting that I could actually see, especially Washington and I'll say Jefferson. Those two were it was so impressive for me. And Mariah Reynolds, or not Mariah Reynolds, excuse me, Eliza.
Mm-hmm.
Philippa
Dude, talk about talent. I guess that's obvious, but geez,
she's like, I think she has my favorite, like at least female voice of all time. Possibly like voice in general. I love listening to her sing. It's so good.
Her talent is incredible. I picked up one of the things I picked up the first time is she is singing things that are so like you would have to try so hard to get that out of you. And she's barely like opening her mouth or like she's not showing that she's trying at all. And that is so incredible that she's that talented that she can just do that.
Me and Gabby kept saying like every time she sings and a lot of these cast members, it's just so effortless. Like they just crush these insane runs, these crazy notes, like, and they're doing this while moving around and dancing and every Broadway actor does. I mean, and they always dance and sing, but it's just crazy to see it happen.
Even at one point, I think Aaron Burr is singing. I think it's him who sings up on the table and they pull the sheet. He jumps off of that table high and lands on his feet while he's singing. And it might have been in editing, but it sound like he doesn't make a grunt or like or any sort of noise.
Unreal, because that's hard to do, man. That's so hard. I thought it was Jefferson that did that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it could have been.
Regardless, yeah. And you know what's funny?
It's Burr. It's during where it happened.
So moving on from that, I picked up. I think I had a pretty substantial takeaway the second time I watched it, and I would liken it to Wesley, your favorite or your famous Twitter series about Pirates of the Caribbean not being Jack Sparrow's story, but Keira Elizabeth's story.
Yeah, or Elizabeth. Yeah, my Star Wars analogy.
Like this, the story it's following Alexander Hamilton's life. It's telling his story, but the more interesting story to me, and the story that's like just as important right underneath the surface, is Aaron Burr's story. Like it's such a tragic story of how they became friends, but they met, and Aaron Burr just could never catch up to Hamilton. And even in that song, it's like, how does he write like he's running out of time? And he wrote those 51 essays, and he's like, I cannot keep up with this man's ambition, and he keeps taking my opportunities. I want to be George Washington's right-hand man, and then Alexander Hamilton walks into the room and he gets dismissed. And so it starts from like a friendship to let's go get drinks together because you're intriguing, because we're similar, to he kills him. You know, he's the man that murders Alexander Hamilton. And like, that is such a tragic but interesting story. And if you just follow the play, watching Aaron Burr's story, for me, it was way more enjoyable and interesting to see that happen underneath the surface.
I couldn't agree more. You just hit the nail on the head for me. That was the same revelation I had watching it. I had never really realized that he's, in my opinion, the true main character of the story. And then, go ahead.
The thing too that, oh gosh, man, it's so emotional. It makes me like really love Burr's character even more. It's just one line in Dear Theodosia. It's like you see these men at this time are fighting for independence and to create something new and to I don't know if emancipate is the correct word, but themselves from this other country. And when he's singing, he's writing the song to his daughter. He says, "You'll come of age with our young nation." And to me, that is just like, well, that's the whole reason why he's so passionate about all this. The reason why he's doing this is because he's not doing it so his name will be a legacy, or his legacy will be known, but he's building a foundation for the generations to come. Like it's all, I think, I can't say the real people, but the perspective of this show, it's like what they're doing, they understand that it's foundational. And he's doing it for his daughter and for his daughter's kids and all, you know, etc.
Absolutely. And what I love about that is that accentuates how much of those two characters are foils for each other, because they both do have the same intention. They both realize that planting seeds in a garden you'll never get to see, or whatever the line is in the second to last song. Yet their approaches are so different.
They're opposites, yeah. Their approaches are
complete opposites, where they have the same intentions. And that Burr is constantly in the shadow of Hamilton because Hamilton's so forthright. And of course, we know Burr, you know, keeps his opinions to himself, which ends up being his own undoing. I love watching it accentuated the fact that they were foils for me so much more than just listening to it. And it made the story 10 times more emotional because where he reaches that boiling point, kills Hamilton, and of course realizes that was ridiculous and duels are immature, and
he realizes immediately, like the whole time. I saw this on Twitter, so it's not my credit, but the whole time he is waiting for it and Hamilton is taking his shot, and the final duel between the two, Hamilton does not take his shot and Burr does not wait. And Burr, the second he shoots, and then Hamilton does his little death several feet ahead of him, whatever monologue thing. When it goes back to the shooting, Burr screams out, "Wait!" And it's like in that moment he realized, like, the one time I should have waited, I didn't wait, and now Hamilton's dead.
Wow,
yeah,
God, that's good.
Yeah, it's sick.
And that's where Miranda's such a genius, dude.
The concept of this play is doesn't even make any sense. He read a biography about this dude and was like, these characters remind me of rappers. I'm gonna make like a rap show, and then I'm gonna make it the most successful like Broadway show ever.
And how good he is at instantly encapsulating. What, did I interrupt you?
No.
Okay. How good he is at instantly encapsulating Burr's character, which might be obvious, but I picked up on it. Just in Aaron Burr, Sir, the first time he's introduced, and he says, "Are you Aaron Burr?" And he says, "That depends who's asking." He keeps his opinion so close to his chest that he's not even willing to give up his name at first. Yeah. When someone directly asks him his name. I just thought that was cool. I mean, I get that it's in your face.
No, everything is intentional in this in the lyrics, like,
yeah.
And that's what blows my mind, is because it's one thing to write a song and it be intentional, because it doesn't really have to have any kind of rhythm. I mean, you want to follow a melody and stuff, but then like to make it rap, which, you know, often has rhyming words and a structure to follow, and you've got verses and bars and stuff, and to have it still be so intentional within that style of music is like, it's just crazy. I mean,
but also the fact
2.5
that
hours of music,
they're doing all the expert level music, lyric, rap writing, but also he's having to take into account storytelling too while he's doing it. And if you watch it knowing the end, you can see what in the beginning is being set up to be paid off after the fact, all through them singing and rapping. It's really, I think it's a really I don't watch a lot of theater as much as I would like. But so I'm saying
It's
that
not
because I don't
publicly
know if
accessible.
it's yeah, but I'm saying that because I don't know if anybody's ever done anything like this before, but I feel like what they accomplished with this show and this film at this point like is really substantial.
Mm-hmm. I mean, beyond the show, like the broader implications of something. I mean, Broadway's traditionally very exclusive. You couldn't have seen Hamilton on Broadway unless you had money. Like it would be $500 a ticket. That's why it was a lot of celebrities going and stuff. And Broadway has generally been pretty exclusive in that regard, to the point where, I mean, the most big plays, like you can't watch Wicked with Idina Menzel and what's her name, Kristen Chenoweth or something like that. Like the original cast, you can't watch that. Like we missed it and that's it. They might have a recording somewhere, but it's not accessible to us. Whereas now for $7, you can see something that people were paying thousands to see years ago, and we have this forever theoretically, and it's just crazy.
That's why I love Memphis so much. Is it's the first exposure I had to. I've seen shows live like you have, but it was extremely similar to this, where it was. Sorry, I keep echoing and it was throwing me off. It's extremely similar to this, where it was a recording of the original cast doing their thing, and then it's edited in post. And it's probably
I didn't know there was a Memphis.
Yeah, and it's on DVDs how I would watch it. So, seeing this was rewarding in that sense, because most shows aren't accessible like that.
No, yeah. I mean, it's not to mention Broadway's, and I mean the bigger shows travel, but like, or not travel, but they have like their cities and stuff. But Broadway shows are in New York City, so like beyond paying for a ticket, you have to get to one of the most expensive cities in the world. And yeah, it's a whole thing. So it is really cool that something like this exists for $7.
Right.
I'm curious,
100%.
like whoever the mysterious they, have to have approached Lin-Manuel Miranda and asked him like, what about a Ben Franklin play, or what about like XYZ, whoever, fill in the blank. Like I would, this is such a cool way to learn history. It seems, to my knowledge, like it's pretty accurate from what I can gather, what I already knew and what I'm learning because of the show, and also from researching things after the fact. It's such a cool way to learn. And gosh, if they could just keep doing cool like theater performances, like in the same vein as Hamilton, with different characters from history, or figures from history, that would be so cool. But I would understand if he didn't want to be like boxed
I think
in.
he took
a lot of liberties.
let me think. He took like 6 years to do Hamilton, I think. Because I think in 2011 he performed Alexander Hamilton for President Obama. And that's like when he first started writing. I think he took the famous vacation that he like started writing the play on in 2010 or something. Wrote the first song, which kind of like, or didn't write the first song. He like wrote a song and then built on that idea for 6 years, to the point where the show wasn't on off Broadway till 2015. So yeah, I mean, and it'd be so tough. I do want more of this kind of stuff, but like I know it just wouldn't hit the same way,
I don't know.
Like, because I know Lin-Manuel's not going to do it. Somebody's going to try to do it probably one day, but I don't think he will. I think he's probably going to let this fade into the sunset.
He's been doing a lot of movies lately. Not a lot. He's done
I would
like
love
two.
if he did like a Lincoln or Franklin, like you suggest.
Yeah.
I do think he took a lot of liberties. I'm no history expert, but from what I've read, he like self-admittedly biases the story a lot, and there's a lot of things that's conveniently left out, like Washington being a slave owner.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as like history goes, they kind of do, but not. I mean, Hamilton himself is not. I mean, his slave history is not great either. He didn't own slaves, but it's still. I mean, you have.
It's unavoidable. The people, anybody from that time, they did something, but
most of these historical figures,
yeah.
And even Hamilton, who didn't own slaves, he married into the Schuyler family, which had like some of the largest plantations, and like his trading charter on the Caribbean island was like a slave trading charter, which he calls it just a trading charter.
Yeah, but
they've done a lot of talk of
nothing.
What's up?
Nothing.
I was saying they've done a lot. The whole cast has been talking a lot, because I mean, obviously this show came out around a pretty important time in America, with Black Lives Matter movements, and it was going to be impossible for the cast to avoid talking about it. And I think they've taken it in stride. Like, if you want to hear those conversations from those people and people of color, like, they definitely have addressed it.
And
I love
Disney
how people of color are represented in the show. in
Disney
general.
Plus just
Mhm.
released a couple of days ago an additional. It's a 30-minute thing. I'm looking right now to see what
Mhm.
it's called.
Yeah, I watched it. It's an
But-
ESPN show.
But
I forget what it's
it's
called.
The Undefeated presents Hamilton in depth, and it's basically 30 minutes
Mhm.
about them talking about inclusivity and
Yeah.
you know, what word am I thinking of? Your representation. You know, it's really neat. It's a good
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean, they take it and they don't shy away from like talking about that.
They
which
I've
is
watched
cool, 'cause
this
they
thing
could've easily not.
with the guy that plays George Washington, and he said, because they were, I can't imagine what it's like to be asked to portray a
Washington.
character. No, to portray a character that's not my ethnicity, especially like a black guy playing a white guy as big as George Washington. So he said he really had to like dig deep, basically, like, is this something I want to do if I know the things he's done that are kind of crappy and go against what I believe, but is there a world where I could still do that, And he said, obviously he ended up taking the part, but at the end when Eliza is saying like,
Mhm. She's talking about the Washington.
she's like, I pushed to get the Washington Monument made. And then in the background, you can see George Washington kind of like puff up, like, yeah, hell yeah. And then she goes, although you could have done more to abolish slavery, he kind of like sinks.
He puts his head down and like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he sinks
I saw that.
and thinks to himself and kind of just gives like a nod, like, oh no, you're right. And then that's his
Mhm.
exit. And then he's not in the rest of the show. And that was him as an actor putting that in the show.
I watched the same video because that wasn't in the original. Like, that wasn't on the script or whatever. Like, I think I know exactly what video you're talking about. He talked with the Lin-Manuel or the director or whatever and decided they wanted to put that in to acknowledge
Yeah,
the show's lack
genius.
of acknowledgement. Yeah. I was just about to say something, I don't remember. Yeah, they lost me.
Talking about people of color representation.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Obviously, me and Brandon are white, and none of us are black, and but yeah, the show has its faults there, but I think the cast, there's lots you can watch where they talk about it, and obviously, I mean, if they go back 5 years in time, maybe they would have changed some things, but
I don't think it's the end of the world. I just think
No,
it's like,
yeah.
Lin-Manuel has never, to my knowledge, like acted like it's an accurate representation of history.
no, not
It's
at
just
all.
his creation.
Hmm. I just think coming out at this time, seeing this show that's like glorifying these figures that were massive slave owners, I think it's important that they answered that, and they did. And I thought it was really cool that Disney put that 30-minute thing up, because I mean, Disney's kind of not apolitical, but they try not to get involved with things like that. And that 30-minute segment is a lot of that kind of talk. Like, there's a lot of people who are going to watch that are like anti Black Lives Matter, whatever the hell that means, and they're going to be like pissed watching that, and Disney put it up there, which is cool.
What's not cool is that Disney censored the 2 F words.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
The-
3.
There's
Was
there's
there
3. Well, no, they censored 2 and kept 1, and I think they kept the
No,
wrong one.
no. They didn't keep it. They put it in reverse.
No, he always says "fuh," like he never says.
That's not what I'm talking
yeah.
about. They say the F word 3 times. They say "fuh" or whatever twice, I think. There's one where Hamilton's up on the catwalk up there, and he goes, "John Adams, you fat mother," and then it gets red and it beeps.
That's
Well,
actually in the
that's
audio
supposed to be
recording.
beep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's just a creative decision.
The other 3 were actual
But-
F-bombs. Are we
but-
cussing on this or no?
I don't care. But the
Okay.
one where, oh God, what is it? Is it the one where Mulligan comes
Mhm.
back?
When you knock me down, I get the fuck back up again.
One of them, they do it in a really cool way. One of them, instead of in one,
Oh, you're talking about
in one,
Southern
they just cut-
motherfucking Democratic.
yeah.
Republican. Yes.
Yeah. So that for the F word, they put that word in like reverse and do all this kind of stuff in it, and it doesn't miss the impact for me.
Agreed, yeah.
I would still.
I actually just
prefer
noticed.
to hear
I didn't
it,
know that
but-
that's what it was, but I did notice rewatching it like an hour ago.
It's so
that it was
creative
like
because
something different about it.
if you bleep it, it ruins the moment. If you cut the word out
Mhm.
and it's just like, just void of a noise, it's kind of distracting. But for them to be creative and to censor it in that way and to keep the momentum of the show going is super cool.
Mm-hmm. I was so mad that because I think that because the word fuck and like ratings are it's a whole like murky water.
Yeah.
The way that he like uses pho and say no to this is not like a fool fuck. Like I would have, if I was him, I would have argued and been like, I'm not saying it, I'm just saying pho. So you can give me that and then also give me mulligans. Because they do make the Southern Democratic one really cool. But mulligans is like, that's one of the most hype moments. Like you knock me down, I get and then it's just, I get the back up again. I'm like, no, give it to me.
Yeah. I know.
And I've read that you can have the word fuck multiple times in a PG-13 as long as it's not referring to like a sexual act.
So it's not
or something like that.
It's not MPAA, it's Disney Plus.
That's what I was going to say.
Disney Plus has an F word.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Disney just doesn't want the F word on their platform.
That makes sense then. Okay, then that's probably why it's the pho, because kids aren't going to pick up that it's the word. Okay. Dang, that makes sense. But yeah, I was the whole time I was watching, I was like, man, you picked the wrong one. You picked the wrong F-bomb. Like it should have been mulligans. And even watching it now, like now I like the Southern Democratic Republican part so much. Like I think like you said, they did such a cool thing to like make that impact still stay there, which is so cool.
And it's so important. It's important to keep the momentum up because the way that they say it is really, really fast. Mm-hmm. And if they were just to take the word out and keep the music under it for,
it would sound like missing a beat or something.
Yeah, it would just sound weird. But
yeah,
I just thought it was
any
genius.
slight rhythm issues towards the beginning of the show?
Not rhythm, but there's intentional slowdowns a lot, like from 4 to 1 and multiple times. And I haven't looked. I've been meaning to look into like why that happens, but at first I thought it was a mistake, and then I realized it had to have been intentional because multiple times they go from 4 to 1, like with a slowdown, a very slight slowdown. Like Gabby didn't notice it at first, and I was like,
it was bothering me. My ears were twitching. I'm not sure.
Crazy.
Did you guys see that the director was in that pit right in front of him?
The musical director, yeah. They interact with him a lot in the show. Like he's a part of the show a few times. King George silences him during his first song. Like he like does like that to get him to stop playing the music.
Yeah, I did love
and Reynolds pamphlet, Jefferson hands
the Reynolds pamphlet.
him a Reynolds pamphlet, which is cool.
Some of that like subtle or not so subtle, I guess, but whatever. Some of the fourth wall breaking I really liked.
Mm-hmm. The Tomcat Hamilton. Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's true.
A lot of that, or like enter me, he says in parentheses.
Yeah, parentheses. And even in one of the King's songs, he looks at the crowd and he goes, everybody, like join me and singing that.
Or no, when he stomps and changes the color to
blue.
My
God, that's so...
He's like, I'm feeling
so
blue.
Boom.
Yeah.
It's so... That part cracks me up. He, like... For 3 songs, he kills it.
Oh, for sure.
The King George's performance is so good, and I knew exactly where it was gonna go, because when he walks out for the first time, he just walks out and he kind of does this crisscross-legged kind of walk out, but the audience laughs, and he's literally just walking from point A to point B to his mark, and the audience laughs.
It's because his costume is so
like,
obviously
oh my god,
over the top.
it's so subtle, his performance, and the fact that he chooses not to blink, in that, at least in the first song, and the spit obviously is more in your face, kind of a choice.
So much. I thought it was
so
when
subtle.
I saw it,
his performance, it's great.
I thought that was like a King George thing, like the mad King George, like he's spitting because he's angry. And I saw, and Lin-Manuel talked about it on Twitter, and he was saying like, no, Jonathan Groff just is like a spitter when he sings, which apparently is like a Broadway thing. Like like a lot of singers will spit, I guess, to help like enunciate words and stuff like that. And he's just like excessive.
Well,
and it works perfectly for the character.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a perfect character choice too.
It's so much spit too. You can tell because it's like discolored. Like it's not like clear spit. It's like bubbly. A pool of spit that he's had. Oh, it is so much nastier than I anticipated. I remember seeing tweets about it and I was like, oh, that's gonna be funny. And then I was like, oh my god, this dude just like drooled. But it was awesome.
I love how over the top his costume was, obviously, and stuff too.
Mm-hmm. And he's like his voice sounds mechanical. It's so good.
He's incredible. Him and obviously Angelica. Eliza,
Renee,
I
that
thought
was-
was a little pitchy in
and
her
Peggy.
first debut, but I thought in
and Alexander Hamilton.
I thought she was a little bit pitchy, not to be like an armchair quarterback or anything, but then I thought she was incredible in
Helpless.
yes.
Yeah, her I do was like insane. I just don't know how she
Eliza.
hits. That's so good. Eliza. Yeah, it's just the talent on display in this show is crazy.
My question that you would never know from the audio: was Lawrence gay in this play?
I just Googled his name and I saw his face on a gay pride flag, and I never caught that.
Did you guys not pick up on that?
No.
Now that you're saying it,
I haven't seen anything on it, but the way he looks at Hamilton and interacts with him, I thought he was gay for
Yeah.
sure, like 100%.
I didn't catch that, but
I'll have
if
to
you
rewatch it
Google
now.
image,
It's
John
subtle.
Lawrence,
It's
there's a
subtle.
lot
It's
of
not spoken. It's
stuff like
acting.
that.
It was all through his acting.
is
which
he
was really
is
impressive.
he like is the actual historical figure gay?
There's
have no
no
idea,
telling,
but I'm just
I
saying
don't
in
think
this
they
show-
would openly
I
say
guess
that
that
in
show
the
was
day.
like 300. Yeah,
right? But in this show, through his extremely like subtle yet impressive acting, I was like, oh, he's gay.
I didn't pick up on that.
I'll have to
if you
rewatch
watch
it and
it
see
again,
it, yeah.
you'll know exactly what I'm saying.
yeah, because he doesn't have like, I mean, I can see some choreography in my head that like could suggest that, but now I'm gonna have to go back and watch
their
it.
interactions, not the choreography.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like the way they're like, because Hamilton looks at them as like best friends and stuff. That's
Right,
interesting.
no.
I'll have to
that
look
was
and see.
100% the impression I got. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Very cool.
Oh, hold on. Let's do some like quick fire stuff.
Okay.
Favorite character in the show?
Washington.
Oh gosh. Probably Aaron Burr's probably the most interesting to me, but I would say that Lafayette
not a
is
quick
really
fire.
funny.
Yeah, Lafayette's my
Yeah.
choice because he's got the best
His swagger is
rhymes
the
and everything.
best.
It's so good. Yeah,
And
Mhm.
Jefferson's
And
acting.
Jefferson's.
He's my.
he's really
second
awesome
now, I
too.
think.
Yeah.
What did I
It's
miss
the
was
same
so hype. Like
I know.
I really love that number because of his performance.
What's your favorite number in the show?
Dear Theodosia.
Oh, interesting.
Oh god, mine is Dear Theodosia. Really, that's one of my least favorites.
There's the most storytelling.
Interesting.
I think,
Mine
in
was One Last Time is by far my favorite.
That's good. I read that it was originally One Last Ride, which wouldn't have really made too much sense. But you can see there's videos of him singing One Last
I'm
Ride.
glad that's changed. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also didn't know this, but he wrote George Washington for Christopher Jackson.
Really?
Songs and everything. And to
Wow.
the point where when they were doing In the Heights together, the two of them,
Mm-hmm.
during while the show was happening, they were backstage waiting for their number. And that's when they like pitched him the part.
Really.
Yeah, and he was like, I wrote this for you. I want you to do this. And that's why when you hear One Last Time, you're like, this is a Christopher Jackson
I was gonna say
song because the dude just
Kills it.
demolishes
It is-
it. Yes.
one of my favorite vocal performances I've ever seen.
And the way he's like, I think he's like legitimately crying
Yeah.
at the end. Like,
That's because he's an incredible actor.
yeah, and you can see, Lin-Manuel
is.
like breaks character. He's like just smiling. Like, he's not even like Hamilton being happy or sad that it's one last ride. Like, it's literally just Lin-Manuel like smiling like ear to ear. And it's so,
And
that's
I
like
think-
one of my favorite parts in the show.
And I think the premise behind this number is part of why it's so important to me, because I like Washington as a historical figure. That
Stepping
decision is like, in my opinion, one of the most honorable and incredible decisions anyone's made in our history. You know, regardless of, you know, other choices
The
or
other
whatever, whether you
decisions.
want to glorify Washington or not.
Mm.
I just think that that's incredible. And the fact that they made a whole number surrounding that concept, and it also happens to be like, his range is similar to my range. So it's like one that I can actually sing along to.
I'll have to hear that one day.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big bold statements by Brandon O'Toole.
Yeah.
No. I don't. He has more talent in his pinky finger than I have in my whole body. I'm just saying that might be why I also
Maybe
love
next
it so
time
much.
we
Gotcha.
if we ever get to go back to Disney World, we can use that drive to
God, yeah,
build
right.
out some of
That'd
these
be
Hamilton
sweet.
songs.
Yeah, and so my favorite song is Guns and Ships Audio, because I just love that song and it's so fast and awesome, and Daveed Diggs kills it. But I think watching it, Room Where It Happens, like continues to grow on my list because it is so good and
What
jazzy
song?
and like Leslie, Room Where It Happens.
Rumor it happens.
It's the one. room where it
Oh, the
happens.
room where it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes so hard. Like
Yeah.
whenever he's like just riffing at
And
the
then
end.
drops out at the one part
And-
too. It's great.
Yeah, it's always reminded me of. I put this on Twitter and I said that I want, if they ever do live action Princess and the Frog, I want him to play Dr. Facilier.
Dude.
Because-
Yes, dude.
Yeah.
Room Where It Happens, and I Got Friends on the Other Side are so.
I thought
similar,
the
like
same thing.
dancing, everything, and it's so
When
good.
I didn't know the name of the song, but I know the song that you're talking about. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, this is like New Orleans. Like that's the way I
Yes,
described
yeah.
it in my mind, which I don't think that makes sense at all, unless I'm talking about Princess
No,
and
it
the
does.
Frog. But
No, I think so. Yeah,
that's funny that you say
New
that.
Orleans sound
I had
is
the
a real thing.
exact same thought.
yeah. I mean, it's the jazziest song probably in the entire show, and his own albums, the Leslie Odom Jr.'s albums, are jazz albums. He's got
Oh.
like 3 or 4, and he's like a jazz singer, which is why I think he just kills that song when he's riffing and just going off. It's so good. I love it.
If I may interject with 2 honorable mentions.
Go for it. Yeah.
Obvious. Satisfied.
Oh yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
Second, for me, Cabinet Battle number 1.
That one has
Dude.
grown on my list since seeing it.
It hits so hard, yeah.
Yeah, the doing whatever the hell it is you do in Monticello, like
Yeah,
his little
dude.
dance he does is so fun.
That's a display of really good acting, I
Mhm.
thought, on his part.
I think that's it for my quick fire questions.
Favorite side character?
Oh,
Er-
Lafayette.
Well, yeah.
Okay,
Alphabet.
besides him.
Okay. Like
Minor character.
more minor than them, so not
I like-
Jefferson or
dude,
Madison.
just pick-
I like
I don't
Philip.
know.
Oh, or
Yeah.
Mulligan, dude.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah,
beginning,
he's
when
awesome.
the
I
music
actually
drops
liked
out,
Madison
and he's
more.
just like,
yeah, and him, dude, his
I'm
acting
Hercules
as Mulligan versus
Mulligan.
Madison.
Up
Right.
and you're loving it, yeah.
And I
His
hear your
Madison
mother
is sick.
say,
Like,
"Come
he just
on,
keeps
kid."
that cloth. The-
Poor dude has
yeah,
to
I could
has
just-
to perform in a beanie, 3 layers of clothing, and a
I know.
coat.
Have you ever
It's
heard
so
him
hot
talk?
up
too?
Yeah,
there.
it's not the
Like,
same.
He's not like that deep voiced like dude. He's like it kind of blew my mind because I see him as like that deep voice like big
Yeah.
character, and he's like a very chill dude.
Yeah. All right, I think
Okay.
that about does it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to the first, possibly only, possibly first of many Laugh Track Podcast Hamilton editions. If you liked this, like and subscribe to our channel that we have, and beg for more.